Okay, now we're going to discuss a very combative game from 2011 at the Tata Steel tournament where you were white against Hikaru Nakamura. So, Sauron taking on Hikaru.
Yeah, those were the days.
Yeah, this little Twitter joke for you guys if you follow Hikaru's Twitter. So, you're on the white side of a sharp Sicilian here.
Yeah, somewhat unusually for me. But I would say that there are a few factors that speak for White's position. First of all, I've spent I've gotten F2, F4 in one go, which is huge. Usually in these positions, White goes F3, G4, G5, and then F4. I've spent time on Bishop E2, which might not be the most useful moves, but in general, these positions are pretty good for White when you have the square on D4, and that one square on E5 usually doesn't do that much. So in general, White is doing pretty well, and yet I can remember not being very, very comfortable, as you know, it's still a sharp Sicilian, and Hikaru has won a lot of them, even though he's not necessarily been doing so well objectively in them. So
he's probably been playing pretty fast up to this point.
He hadn't been playing that fast, but I can see your point. Yeah. So I wasn't that comfortable. And then he goes Rook F8, which is a very typical idea that you wanna go Bishop F8, and often you wanna go G6 and Bishop G7, even at the cost of slightly weakening the king side there. Maybe he should have played more concretely here to go knight to c4. I wanted to take it. Queen d3. Should be noted that given time, White would be pretty comfortable here. But concretely, he can go knight a3 and king a1, and he can go knight b5, and it's not that clear. I can take and go knight d4, but at least here he can exchange queens. Maybe he has other moves as well, and at least he's simplified it, because I think the status quo is not great for black. But he went rook f8 instead, and now came one of the moves that I'm pretty happy about, king a1. I'm taking the time for a prophylactic move in this moves in this apparently pretty sharp position. The point is simply that I don't want knight a3 to come and check. Whenever a knight comes to c4, I want to chop it off, move the queen, and make the argument that he has very little counterplay. And I feel like, once again, the long-term factors are good for me. I feel like long-term, he can't really stop my attacks with my pawns so well advanced that I can actually afford to waste time playing these prophylactic moves. And I understand that some people weren't too impressed with my games. For instance, Grishuk talked to me after the game, and he said that he was impressed by the fact that I managed to win despite playing king b1 to a1 for absolutely no reason. But I still feel like at least this was in my style, and that the concept was pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good lesson for people, because I feel like many players, these positions with opposite side castling, they feel like they have to play in high gear, always increasing the severity of their threats and pushing the pace. But a lot of times you need a prophylactic, a consolidation type move.
Yeah, absolutely.
That will help your attack.
So you can see one of the other points of this move is that getting the knight to d4 is generally desirable, but right here, knight c4, there's queen e1, sort of looks like everything is protected. Bishop c1 can come next, and everything would be excellent. But he has queen b6, and I probably have to retreat with knight b3, which I don't really want, because of bishop c1 there's a nice little tactic.
Oh yeah.
So you always have to be on the lookout for that, and with king a1 those aren't going to work. So here he continues with the same plan, but probably that's just too slow. He goes queen c5, which is again probably too slow, but I don't think he has a lot of other ideas. After knight to c4, I can go queen e1, but I can also just take it. Go queen to d3, queen b6, I can just go bishop c1, and there's just nothing.
Again, you're taking time to neutralize all threats.
Yeah. The attack is coming with g6, and he has just no chances there. So we went queen c5, wanting queen a5, but their g6 is coming now, and there's really not much he can do. Knight c4, if fg, there's hg, knight e6, and then bishop g5. You can continue the line like this, rook f6, attacking the queen. Once again, now there's rook h6 as well, and I still gotta be a little bit careful.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose here queen somewhere should be very, very strong. Probably queen g2, with the idea that if takes, I got bishop e6, rook h1, and in case of rook somewhere, this particular one runs into queen g6, and otherwise there's just queen g6 and rook h6 next. So that should be pretty much.
And g6 is such an effective break because it attacks two pawns.
Yeah, exactly. It's a well-known theme that g6 forces the issue. It forces the opening of lines, and in this case, opens up for potential knight e6 followed by bishop g4 themes as well. So
I always think about that, and when I'm explaining this idea to students, where can you create maximum tension? You want open lines if you're the attacking side. H6 will just run into g6, and black can close it. So here you're guaranteeing open lines
for sure. And you can that you can see already after I've gone h5. I know something's going to be opened.
Yep.
Regardless of what happens, something's gonna be open. So that's why I know that this attack is basically unstoppable in the long term, because I can open it whenever I want.
And maybe because black doesn't have complementary pressure on the queen side, you can afford to play moves like king a1. Secure your position.
There is nothing of the sort, which is why a lot of people in this particular variation, when after I go a lot of people play a5 early on, even though it's a bit of an ugly move, positionally speaking. At least here you can imagine that white has to somehow weaken the queen side in order to prevent against prevent black's immediate threats there. So
right.
there are advantages and disadvantages, but white is forced to at least reckon with that. But while in the game, the lack of the lack of an attack for black is a massive issue. There are tricks obviously, but a real attack not so much.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a case of white has superior king safety, and in the long term, that's just decisive. So what happened here? Yeah, queen d3 can go h6. I just go queen g3. Mm-hmm. Whenever he goes f6, I can switch to just playing positionally. I know that I haven't really made any concessions, positionally speaking. I've gotten this massive pawn on g6. His bishop is dead. That I don't have to attack to win. I can just win positionally as well. And that's what we talked about earlier on as well. Like attacking with an out.
The far-reaching consequence of that pawn, if you get it established, really any pawn deep in your opponent's position like that around their king.
Yeah, and exactly the fact that you can attack without needing mate to win. That's one of the keys of actually establishing these pawns, as you say, that they're a huge asset positionally as well. Mm-hmm. So he took an h6, which is a typical way that you try and stop the attack. You concede that one line has been opened, but not the other. And here, at the very least, you can hope for something as black. Like, eventually, you understand that an attack is not going to work. Whenever you try knight b2, there's just knight b3, and there are way too many pieces protecting that king. Mm-hmm. But after h6, you can imagine a scenario where white plays does not play energetically enough, and maybe the g6 pawn falls. Who knows? Maybe bishop e7 to f6 can happen. Who knows? Long term, with these pawns exchanged, it's maybe not so bad. The problem now is that there's an open file, and bishop h6 is gonna be really hurtful, as well as some knight e6, followed by infiltrating on the f file, particularly using that f7 square. It's also very dangerous. So queen g3, queen b6, bishop c1, protecting everything, keeping the king perfectly safe, and still hinting at h6.
Yeah.
So he goes for queen a5. Now at least he has a concrete threat. Let's say I make some kind of null move, then he goes knight b2 and then rook c3, and then I would actually lose. But I don't do that. I go for rook f1 instead. And now if knight b2, I would have knight e6. And I think the difference here is that if rook c3, now I've got queen f2.
Yeah.
And the queen f7.
That's painful.
It's going to be mate, yeah. So rook df1, attacking as well as defending in a sense.
I think it's also interesting the fact that you have all your pawns back. It just makes it so much tougher for black to make contact with your position. I mean, yes, there are some knight takes b2 ideas in the air, but
as you say, that he can tricks. That's what he can hope for.
Yeah,
he can hope for tricks, while I have clear targets.
And even if you're not breaking through immediately, all these ideas are in the air constantly.
Exactly. They're not going away, while for him it's a matter of, can I make some trick work in the short term? Otherwise, mine is just gonna crash through. So there were other ways I could have taken immediately. Queen g4, knight to d5. There are themes like if rook e4, I got queen f5, and for one thing, queen f7 is hard to prevent, but there's also knight f6 taking on a5, and if knight e5, it's same thing. I guess is a problem that knight f6, g6 runs into knight f6 or knight e7.
Right.
But yeah, rook f1. So knight d5. I guess I just calculated that this works out, so there was no reason not to go for it. Here I think bishop h6 is a huge threat already, so there's not much you can do. It takes twice, and bishop h6.
Time to break through.
Yeah. I guess it's as simple as that, to be fair. If he takes on d4, I think a number of moves are gonna win. For instance, bishop to e3, and rook h8 is simply gonna be mate. Probably queen h2 or queen h3 next is gonna mate as well. So,
yeah, nice Damiano's mate.
Yeah. That's what it calls. I didn't know that. Thanks for enlightening me there.
Yeah, that's our continuation of our 100 endgames discussion.
For sure.
Don't think in terms of names of operations sometimes.
No. So there's really not a lot he can do here. His king side has broken down. He has no counterplay on the queen side whatsoever. And he's just going to be mated. Takes g7. If if there's rook c7, for instance, don't see anything else other way to protect than this, and I have knight g4. I can also go knight f7. He would have to take on h1 because king g8, rook h8 is mate. So, but also knight g4 takes.
Choose your brutal discovery.
Yeah, these are the things you don't even need to calculate.
Yeah,
they just, once you get there, once you see that g7, you got knight f takes, you got knight f5, then that's it. You don't need to calculate anymore. It's just always going to work with. With the rooks on c8, queen d5, you even got forks. It's just an abundance of goods here. So he went bishop b7 instead. Here I just go for brute force.
Yeah, huge pressure at this point.
Yeah, just go for brute force. Queen g6. I calculated a way to win the game very easily. So, apparently queen f6 mates by force, but once you see a win that's so simple as this, there's just no reason. King d7, queen e7 is mate, and queen e5 doesn't even limit the loss to queen against rook, because I win a further rook with queen e6.
Yes,
forking this rook. So. I would say it was a pretty nice and easy win.
Yeah.
But what made it easy is that I took the time to go king b1 and then to go king a1. I just safeguarded my king first. I made sure that there were no tricks, and I knew that the strategic factors were in my favor. And this game goes to show again that strategic factors, they don't need to be about obtaining positional goals. They can be about having the safer king long term, for instance.
Yeah.
Which can be just as important. Like often you will have one player having the better pawn structure and the other player having better long-term king safety, which turns out to be more important factor. So I think the case here, white has a ready-made attack. It's never going away. And once you safeguard your own king, then black is strategically busted. It doesn't mean that black cannot fight, that there may not be resources for black, but strategically, basically, the fight is over. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent summary. And yeah, as you were talking about it, it became more and more clear that really for a strong player, king A1, bishop C1, those are the types of decisions, not even towards black's king, that are actually probably the most challenging ones, even if you're able to find them without a whole lot of effort. The attack almost plays itself, as they say.
Yeah.
You know the attacking operations. You know you're going to sack on h6 at some point, probably. Just a matter of, can you safeguard your king?
And you can see the evolution of my style in just a few years. That from wanting to go for it immediately, now I just wanted to make sure everything's nice and safe.
Yeah, right. This is a few years after the other games.
Before I go for it. So there was definitely a change there.
Yeah.
And I think also for some others, if you could calculate a way to make the attack work earlier on, then good for you. That's just not one of my strengths, really. I prefer to make sure that I prevent all counterplay before I go for it.
Yeah, great lesson. You don't always have to go all out with your attack. Sometimes consolidation is the best path.